So, welcome to the first BOTTEN and KLUMM show. This is the show that will talk about everything that even touches digitalization. And each time we will have guests from the digital community. And you can see the show on Tuesday and on Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm Lummitsch, the digital journeyman, also known as KLUMM. And there's one person missing right now. This is Brian Otten. Let's introduce Mr. Brian Otten. Come on.
Hey, thank you, KLUMM. I'm Brian Otten. I am BOTTEN. And Lummitsch and I work together as part of a team called the Catalysts at Axway. And we've been working in the area of digital strategy, digital transformation. We focus a lot on the transformative technologies like API management and microservices and all that kind of stuff. But what we're really concerned about is how digital transformation initiatives succeed. And so we talk to organizations all around the world, and we met actually at the API Days conference last year in San Francisco. And that's when we started working together. We strategized, and when we were I think it was in Denver, right, Kai? We came up with the idea of doing a live show. There's something about live that really makes it different, I think. You guys have probably all been webinared up to here by now.
Exactly.
And so we wanted to present something a little bit fresh and exciting and have guests on and really bring this to you in a live setting.
So you brought the point. We'll have a guest, and we have a guest today. It's Nizar Chaouch from Airbus. So, welcome, Nizar.
Hi guys.
You're live. Good to see you.
Hi Kai. Hi Broden.
So, tell us something about you and your role at Airbus.
Okay, so I'm Nizar Chaouch. I work at Airbus, and I'm managing a bunch of teams doing digital stuff, basically APIs, mobile, virtual reality, and all DevOps things. So yeah, that's what I do at Airbus, and really glad to be here. Excited.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an honor to have you here. And on your LinkedIn profile, I saw there is also mixed reality on it. And so this sounds super exciting. What are you doing?
Yeah, tell us about that. That sounds, what is it?
What are you mixing? What is real, what isn't?
So mixed reality is basically the mix between augmented reality and virtual reality. Virtual reality is, all the 3D stuff that you put a headset and just have 3D stuff. Augmented reality is putting things within your view to add stuff to the reality, right? And when you mix both things, so you can add a bunch of 3D stuff to your scope of view, and then you can actually do some really, really neat stuff. So basically, I can give you maybe an example so you get what this Airbus. So we've been working on, obviously training. So you see yourself in the virtual cockpit, you press a bunch of buttons and see what happens, right? We have things around using it actually in the plants. So you actually put the HoloLens headset into your head, and then you're going to be able to go there, and then it's going to show you the wiring behind the stuff that you're actually drilling. So okay, if I drill here, I'm going to touch the blue cable, and that's a bad thing to do, right? And it's going to show you all the wiring behind the scene. It's going to tell you, okay, so you drill the hole here, you drill it there, and then you bring in the green cable, stuff like that. And remote maintenance, you're going to have someone who has this plane who has an issue, and then you're going to have someone back in 10,000 kilometers away. Both are going to wear the headset, and he's going to tell them, okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to do this. I'm going to send you the documentation. Things pops up in his screen, and then he tells them, go more to the left. I want to see whatever you're seeing, and then they're going to be able to do that kind of stuff. So yeah, mixed reality is a really cool field to work in, and the applications are immense. I think that's the best terms.
So the fun thing is when you're talking about this cool stuff, your eyes are starting to glow immediately. So this is a lot of passion in it. So I'm a fan of mixed reality as well. So I love it. And I come up with the next question. So the whole aviation industry is really hit hard, and other industries by this current pandemic state, whatever is happening currently. And before the pandemic, many organizations, even with some organizations we're working with, don't see the real urge behind it to go digital. And I think, for me, I just thought very deeply about that. I think now we're at a point where we need to understand that this is not an option anymore to go for digital. I think we can step back. What do you think about that?
Okay, so before I emphasize on the industry in itself, so obviously, as you can imagine, I'm not entitled to disclose information around Airbus, whatever's happening. So just gonna speak my opinion without engaging that sort of stuff. So yeah, this pandemic has been crazy, right? Like, who would have thought a couple of months ago that we'd find ourselves in this world today, right?
Yeah.
We're speaking virtually. Maybe we would have done this talk show live somewhere, right? And yeah, that's where we are today, anyway. So, but also what this pandemic has revealed is, like when you have so many people teleworking, well, it's not an option. It's just a new normal, right? So top executives, like all these people, I guess it shined the light on really the necessity of having digital and collaboration, right? Because it's all about collaboration in the end. Like, how are you going to make teams work together using all these tools, and how they're going to share all their work, all their piece of work, how they're going to make it efficient. All that is going to be thanks to digital, right? And I'm not going to talk about all the collaboration tools, because it's a theme that has been talked about really a lot these past days and weeks. So yeah, I'm just going to say that it has been hit like every industry pretty much. And yeah, but in the adversity, we found that digital is actually something really important, and that can allow us to achieve the business continuity that we really need in these times.
Yes. So organizations usually, they have a tendency for choosing the wrong tools if it comes to collaboration tools. Do you see this as well?
Well, what we see is when the pandemic first hit and we had to teleworking, the IT system, the IT landscape in a whole wasn't really sized for the scale. So first days we had some problems, some issues with the VPN, obviously, like pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
And well, everyone knows that we chose to go on G Suite. So G Suite proved to be working really, really well. To be honest, we've had something like 50,000 or 60,000 people connecting in the first weeks. Didn't crash at all. Very secure, very reliable, HD camera, all that stuff. So yeah, I guess G Suite has been something very, very critical for our success in that matter, for sure. When it comes to collaboration tools.
So when it comes to working from home, how did you manage it? How did you redesign something for you to have this presence, or didn't you? Well,
at first, what was really complicated for me was, the pandemic hit, all my teams, all the people, they had lots of questions, right? Lots of questions. Okay, how do you deal with this? How do you deal with that? Et cetera, et cetera. And I didn't have all the answers. So my first days were kind of crazy. I would work something like 14 hours a day because I had to handle my family life, and I also had to find a balance to reassure the teams that yeah, okay, we're going to get through this, right? And as a digital leader, it's not that easy. Like, I have a 3-year-old son. He needs a lot of attention. My wife is also teleworking as well. So I don't want to let him in front of the TV all day long.
Yeah.
That's not really an option. And I'm one of those people that like to live in the city center. I'm in an apartment, so
yeah.
And there's not that much space, right? I cannot isolate in a room or something. So I'd say it was pretty hectic in the first days, for sure. maybe even the first weeks, but then got better, right? Because we kind of got organized, okay, so you deal with him in the morning, I deal with him in the afternoon, and then you kind of find a way to make it the new normal.
Yeah.
Yes.
And who would have ever the idea that once we only work from home, that we are working massively more? I think we are seeing it all over, and everybody I'm talking to, we're saying that we can't do anything. Of course, I have the same situation. I'm taking care of a 6 years old, and so if I'm alone with him, I can't work at the same time, and so this reduces the limit. But in general, we are working way more, and we have to find a completely new way to find a work-life balance, because everything is mixing. For me, it's good, but I think it's a very personal, individual decision on how to deal with it. I think we are all, after these 2 months or more than 2 months, we are worn out somehow. Brian, you look like you have a question to Nizar. Brian, come on.
I do, and I was gonna. Thanks. I was gonna pick up on what you said, Nizar, about at this time having more. I'm finding I'm having more meetings, and you talked about collaboration, and I think that what this pandemic is really doing is it's forcing people to think about where the value is. It also made me think about the mixed reality is bringing experiences to people, right? I think that, like I said, I'm having more meetings, I'm having more requests. We're actually able to do things remotely that we never thought we could do. And I think that comes down a lot to digital leadership as well, having a vision. One thing that I'm thinking about, I wanted to ask you about is, now that there's a bit of a period where people you talked about the new normal, KLUMM, the business still goes on, right? People are kind of now in that phase where they're realizing that there's a continuity that has to be kept, that there are shifting business needs and business focus. And so what are some of the things that digital leaders are doing at this time to make sure that the vision and the communication is there for your organization?
Okay, well, it's kind of a tricky question, to be honest, Brian, but yeah, I'll answer it nonetheless. Well, as you said, it comes down to two things, really. Like, it comes down to give meaning, and it comes down to how people react to how you give meaning, right? So, in the first stages of the pandemic, since it was something new and something hard, like. What I saw, was my experience, is actually people really rallied up together, right? So everyone knows it's hard. Everyone knows this guy has a 2-year-old kid. You hear baby screaming. You hear, I gotta go cooking and stuff. Like, in the first stages, that adversity has been really, really high, and we kind of took a look at. The numbers of productivity and stuff, and what we found out was March was actually one of the months in the whole year where we have been the most productive, actually. So yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah. So actually, people worked more, and were much more efficient in the teleworking month. But then after the first stages, after people rallying up behind a common cause. It becomes the new normal, right? And then when it becomes the new normal, that's when giving meaning becomes really important, because if people don't know why they're doing whatever it is they're doing, well, that just doesn't work. And the complexity is the business is also adapting, right? Like, the business is adapting. Maybe you're gonna get, less customers or different customers. Maybe the company priorities are gonna change. Like, lots of things are going to change really quickly. That's what this pandemic is all about. Like, I remember, was it Friday or something? Last Friday, I remember I was telling my teams, long term is in 6 months, right?
Yeah.
That's how crazy it is, right? Because the information is changing all the time. So how do you adapt to your business also having that same thing and keeping your team motivated and giving them meaning? It's actually a pretty delicate balance. That's all there is to it, actually. It's a really delicate balance. So there's no good or wrong answer here. It's giving meaning, and counterbalancing all the information that you get.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a trick.
Wow. So, Nizar, may I ask you to move in the middle of the screen so the audience can see your face?
I was turning to Brian, actually. But
this is perfect, but we want to see your full beauty. So this sounds awesome. So I've got another question. So manufacturers like Airbus are already highly digital when it comes to manufacturing things. I just saw a documentary about how to build the A380, and so this is pure rocket science. This is pure digital. And I'm an API guy. I led an API program for many years, and so I'm asking, if you are the API guy at Airbus, what are you doing? What is your main focus at such a already so digital company? Are you more integration, or are you building digital products? What are you doing?
Okay, well, thanks for the question. This one is easier than the previous one. Well, when it comes to an API program, like both you and Brian have led some in Swisscom and other companies. So as you know, when it comes to API programs, you have actually two bits of it. You have the first bit, which is IT modernization, right? So you have an IT system which has been there for a couple of years, and you want to make it better, more efficient. So yeah, that's pretty much IT for IT stuff. You still need to do that because, you have projects popping up all the time, and you don't want to redo the same thing each single time, right? Yeah. So reusing APIs, reusing technical APIs, that is really important because that's what's going to make your organization more agile and more efficient when it comes either to cost, either to IT. But also in an API digital program, you have all the bit around what you're going to do with these APIs in the business, right? Each company is organized in a different fashion. So you're going to have customer services, you're going to have whatever product you're building, whatever it is, software or a plane or anything. And you're going to have the technical teams which are going to maintain that stuff, et cetera, et cetera. So what we found was really interesting in our case was trying to communicate with the different functions, so the engineering guys, the manufacturing guys, the customer services guys, and trying to make them speak together, right? That's what API is all about. It's making one thing speak to the other. So making by being the middleman and making all these, making systems talk. Yeah, actually, that's the thing. So we've had our strategy was based upon several things. So we had all the bits which was engaging directly with the business and trying to find APIs or API products which could make sense for them. And then we had all this second program, which was making businesses speak together and then fishing to see if we could find a really, really cool use case. And it's kind of a frustrating activity because many times it's not going to work, right? You're going to make several people meet, but maybe they've already thought about it. Maybe it's not feasible. You're not always going to find the crazy $1 million use case. Yeah. That's not going to happen every single time. But when it happens, it's going to pay big time. So I suggest still to keep that approach going on. And in our case, it kind of worked for one use case that I cannot disclose, unfortunately. But patience pays off. Patience pays off.
What would you tell us if you were allowed to tell about it? It's a fun question. Don't.
No,
don't.
No, I can't.
So, okay. So,
never mind. But I was going to ask that approach of taking that kind of outside in. I love what you're saying because I always like to say that APIs make your business consumable, and I think a lot of the focus in the past, because a lot of technology programs and initiatives are run starting with the technology, but it has to be business led. And if it's not, what I've seen is that you start to think more about provision. You start to zero in on those use cases, which it's like, well, we're going to save millions by retiring a bunch of systems or moving to the cloud because we need to modernize, right? So modernization quite often is a big driver. But what you're saying is that you're actually finding the things that are leading to innovative products, right? And it's okay if you try something and it fails because you're able to do more quickly using technologies like APIs. So I'm wondering, does that change the way that you start to define success? A lot of our questions that we get from people as catalysts is, I'm in the operational world and I've got a whole bunch of raw metrics about things like APIs and how my systems are running, but the business is asking me whether we're being successful or not, and I can't actually answer that question. So what are some of the ways that you've kind of been able to define success up front and allow that to be determined by business success rather than sort of like technical and operational success?
Okay. Well, I guess when it comes to success, it's about measuring it, right? You can't measure it, you can't prove it, so you can't really say that you're successful or not. When it comes to the things that you can monitor to know if you're successful or not, I guess what we're doing at Airbus is we're tracking the reusability of APIs. If something is reused, it means that you don't have to build it again. If you don't have to build it again, that's some kind of cost that you don't have to spend, right? You're going to avoid spending. So that's
right.
one
So
measure of success.
You haven't just said like, oh, we built 25 APIs. Woohoo!
Yeah. Like the number of APIs doesn't mean anything actually. You can have 400 trash technical APIs. They won't do a damn thing for you. They won't do something for your organization. It's better to have 10 really good built reused APIs than have 400 that are not reused, because they're just actually consuming your platform for no particular reason. So focusing on quality rather than quantity, that's important. But when you start it, it's actually important to have quantity, because you need to prove to your stakeholders that you're actually doing something meaningful. If the numbers look too low, well, that doesn't work either. So I guess you have to balance out your program in different steps. In the first step, showing numbers, it's important. Yeah, definitely. But once you've passed that phase, it doesn't mean anything. You focus on quality, right? And that's how you're going to measure success, at least for the IT field. Now, coming back to your question about how in the business you're gonna be able to measure the success. Well, it's actually pretty easy because you call this phishing program where you're going to find multifunctional use cases which can actually bring value to the company. So you can actually calculate that value for sure. But those are really the minority. Those are like 2% of the things that you're going to do with APIs. But those are the high value ones. When it comes to the standard value ones, each time you just need to have a really business case oriented approach. Why are we doing this? For what reason? What's the outcome? How do we measure the outcome? Pretty simple, right? And if you have a systematic approach, then you're gonna be able to measure it. Whereas if you just take whatever comes, you're not going to be able to measure it. You're just putting stuff on the cloud or in your API manager or whatever, and then you're hoping for the best, right? And usually hoping for the best is not enough, actually. Yeah,
absolutely.
So I think 2 years ago I created on LinkedIn an open list of top 10 nonsense KPIs for APIs. Would you like to add one?
Top 10 what?
Top 10 of nonsense KPIs for APIs. You already mentioned the number of APIs leads always to bad design because you just split it. So you hit your KPI, but you didn't do something meaningful. Could you add one? Would you love to add one nonsense KPI to the top 10?
Well, I don't know the 10, so maybe I'm gonna say one that's already there. I guess
you're the first guest, so you can start off the list.
Yeah. I would definitely say the number of calls is also a nonsense, because it also leads to bad design. If your objective is to have lots of calls, then you're going to do a shit design to have lots of calls. If your objective is to lots of APIs, then you're going to build lots of trash APIs to have lots of APIs. Depends what your business objective is. So if you say the number of calls, I definitely think that's a bad KPI. Like we see lots of these presentations, we have 20 million calls per day. Yeah, so what, right? What's that doing for your company, right? That's a real question.
The volume KPI was actually the number 2 after amount of APIs. So On point. You nailed it. So, Brian, you had another question to Nizar.
Well, I was asking about the success. I am still really curious about, especially now. I think there is the question of leadership and organization and vision, and how that's maintained in the face of this challenge that we've got right now. But it seems to me, from what you're saying, like that teams are kind of start to self-organize. But I guess the danger is that there's this kind of decentralized approach to a digital program. And if you're not careful, then people could go off doing their own thing, and there's no program level guidance or program level vision. How do you keep that? Are you finding that that's easier now because people are collaborating more, as you said, or is it still a challenge to keep people focused on the same priorities?
Okay, so yeah, well, it's definitely a challenge. That's for sure. What I can say is it's about information. Really, it's about information. Mm-hmm. The cycle of information is much quicker in the current situation because stuff is changing all day long. You have French government saying something, and then German government saying another thing, etc., etc., etc. In my case, teams are distributed in many countries. So, like each time you take a decision, you need to be mindful of all the countries it's going to impact. Like India went into confinement much later. So. It's about how you're going to handle that information. What I find out, that's personal experience, is in these times of crisis, the people that you can rely on are not usually the same people that are in times of business as usual. In business as usual, you have people that are really reliable in a set number of things. But in times of crisis, you have other people that are going to shine, right? Because, I don't know, you have people that it's just their thing, like crisis reveals them, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the first things that I put in place was, in my management team, I tried to have a network of opinion, right? So the idea is quite simple. Well, in each management team, you're going to have all your N-1s, your management level. Mm-hmm. But I also added in some people that could actually make a difference. So there's this guy who is a data analyst, a really smart guy, and he brings lots of good ideas to the table. So bringing a data analyst there was actually something pretty good. Also have someone who works in the nonviolent communication field. He came in also to the management team, bring lots of tremendously good ideas to the table. And it's like if the three of us were to make a decision, like Kai and BOTTEN, we've been doing API for a set amount of time. So if you were to take a decision, we'd take it really quickly because we all have the same ideas. Yep. But in times of crisis, you need someone who doesn't think like you, right? Who is going to bring a different angle. Okay, what about if we analyze this piece of data? What about if your message, you don't communicate this way, but you communicate this way, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this thing has worked pretty well to at least keep the teams together. Coming back to your question, Brian, I believe it was something around how you make sure that people don't go on doing random stuff on their side. Well, it comes back to giving meaning. If they don't know what they're doing, they're going to do some stuff on their side, and then it's going to spread. And you want to be able to regroup and not spread. So that's a complicated bit because people will have always good ideas, that's for sure. But it's usually going to be the same ideas too, as well. So you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you're building 10 times the same thing. Yeah. And it is more risky in times of crisis, for sure. Yeah.
So Nizar, we are close to run out of time. And I think we could just continue for hours now because I have questions on API product management. I'm keen to have you on the show again, maybe with a different topic in the future. And so we had our 30 minutes with our first guest, Nizar Chaouch from Airbus. So thank you, Nizar. Thank you so much for having you on the show. The next show will be titled Shaping Digital Teams. And I want to encourage you, audience here, to PM me on LinkedIn. You will find it below the LinkedIn video, the YouTube video, you will find the links. PM me, and then you can be my next guest on this show. So thank you, Nizar. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nizar.
We'll be back next Tuesday on 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and so stay tuned. And this show was powered by Axway. Thank you so much. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys.
Ciao, Nizar.
See ya.
Ciao, Brian.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.